Steven Spielberg presents The Goonies, a Richard Donner film.
Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to the Joncast. Today my friend Sam is back to talk about another one of her favorite childhood movies, another movie I hadn't seen before, The Goonies. One of my goals for this show, in between all the other things I'm working on, is to catch up on a lot of media from my childhood that I missed. Things that you would think everyone has seen, but I somehow didn't. The Goonies has been one of the biggest blind spots that I've been acutely aware of for years, as it's been cited repeatedly as a huge influence on so many things that I love. It's been something I've meant to get around to watching for ages, so I figured it was high time I actually watch it and see what all the hype is about. Okay, so did you grow up with the Goonies?
Yes.
I did not. This is the first time I'd ever seen it.
Nope, it was a staple in my household. We watched Goonies all the time. To the point that that was literally like all our nicknames. We were just Goonies. That's what we called ourselves. It's like, we're all just a bunch of Goonies.
I feel like if I had seen this as a kid, I would love it. I didn't see how great it was watching it now. I was like, this is fine. But like, I can't see myself being like, oh yeah, I gotta watch Goonies again.
I mean, I still get that feeling when I watch it. It's like that childhood whimsy. And it's one of those movies that, like, when you watch it as a kid, you just go with it. Nothing makes sense.
No.
You're fine with it. You're like, well, I'm a kid, and it's kind of like how kids think. Like, none of this makes sense, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Watching it now, as someone who grew up watching it, I know nothing makes sense, but I don't care.
Yeah. I have that with other movies.
Yeah, I think if I was like you and I watched it for the first time, I'd probably be nitpicky, but since I watched it as a kid, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care that none of this makes any sense.
I don't know that I feel necessarily nitpicky because, like, I know that this is basically... I'm going into this looking at it with, like, fairy tale logic. Like, it doesn't make sense, but it's fine. But just, like, it's fine. I didn't love it. Like, because I've heard... It's probably one of those things where it was hyped up too much because everybody talks about how great the Goonies are.
And that's because they all grew up watching it. So in their heads, it's great.
Yeah, and I never saw it as a kid, so... Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's got, the three people behind it. You know, you got the director of Richard Donner, who did Superman.
Yeah.
And it was written by Chris Columbus, who goes on to do Harry Potter. And the storyline is by Steven Spielberg. So you got, three people who... You know, Superman was very whimsical.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you get Harry Potter. And, of course, Steven Spielberg knows how to write little kids who are little shits. And it's kind of the whole point of the show is these kids are shits. And
some more than others.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was one kid in there. I was like, I want this one gone. The Mouth.
Oh, yeah. That's the whole point of Mouth. That's why his nickname's Mouth, is because he's that annoying kid in your group, but you need him. Because he's the one who speaks up, but you're just like, God, this kid.
There was one or two moments where I was like, okay, maybe I'm more on board with him. And then he'd do something else and I'd be like, oh, I want him gone again.
Yeah, but I mean, that's how your friend groups were. It's just like, you got this kid in there and everybody's like, just shut up. But, you know, they don't go away. So he's just your extroverted friend who everybody just tolerates.
I think for the most part he would have been fine, except I really hated him at the beginning when because the whole scene where the mom asks him to translate for the new maid, and I was like, okay. Well, when he started, I was thinking, okay, this is gonna be like one of those scenes where he's pretending to brag to the mom, like, oh, I know Spanish, but he doesn't really. But he fully knows, and he's lying to her, telling her all these horrible things.
Hide the drugs here.
I was like, okay, I hate this kid.
So the whole time Rosita thinks that they're just like a house full of drug dealers. But you'd think in the back of her mind, her being an older Spanish woman, that she'd be like, okay, this kid's a shit. And obviously this nice white lady's hopefully not dealing drugs out of this house that's about to be demolished.
I mean, I guess she doesn't leave, so...
Yeah, she's getting paid. She make that paycheck.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny, though, that I didn't realize this until I was watching a few things on The Goonies, that this was Sean Astin and Josh Brolin's first film roles.
It was?
Yeah. I don't know if they were in TV shows or anything before that, but yeah, it was like their first film roles.
I knew that Sean Astin was in here because, I know him now. I think my first movie was seeing him was Lord of the Rings.
Sam, yeah.
So I'd always heard The Goonies was his breakout role. I had no idea that Thanos was a kid in this.
I know. What was it? I was at my parents' not that long ago, and I think Goonies was on TV because my mom likes it too. And I was just like, God, Josh Brolin has aged very well, and he was just really very handsome when he was a kid. But I was a kid too watching this. I'm only a few years younger than some of these actors. So like as a little kid, you're like, God, all the little boys are cute. And then you got the older brother, Josh Brolin, who you're like, God, everybody's just... You got some good actors in this show, you know? 'Cause you're a little kid.
The kid actors were very good.
Oh, yeah.
Even Mouth, who I didn't like as a character, he was a good actor.
It's Corey Feldman,
yeah.
right? Yeah, well, see, in my first time watching... No, it would have been Goonies that I first watched him. But my favorite role for him is The Lost Boys, where he plays a vampire hunter.
I have not seen that.
I know you haven't. We'll have to watch it for Halloween, maybe.
Okay.
It's good. It's not that bad.
Is it in any way based on Peter Pan?
The Lost Boys?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Because with that title, I was like, is this a Peter Pan thing?
No. No. Well, technically they don't age, I guess. But they also commit gruesome murders, so.
Okay.
No, not Peter Pan. I think it's just they're Lost Boys, because we're not going to get into this, because that's all I'm going to talk about. Because now that you got me thinking about it, I'm kind of like, actually... Some parts are kind of like that, actually, but yeah, we'll just save that.
Okay.
Let's just veer right back into the Goonies here. And it was Ki Hai Kwan's role right after he did Indiana Jones, too, where he played...
He was probably my favorite character.
Oh my God, as a kid, he was my favorite. I was so in love with Data. He was just so cute and charismatic, and I wanted to be a little nerd who came up with neat inventions, too. I didn't, but everybody, you know. It's like, how do you not fall in love with him?
He was
the
the
second
best.
he shows up.
Yeah.
You know, and they all have their strengths. Like, the whole movie, if you took any of them out, I don't think they wouldn't have gotten where they got. Like, you needed every single one of them because they all have their own talents and...
That is true. Yeah.
You know, even Chunk.
Yeah,
Or
I
Chunk.
mean, he comes in, saves it at the end because he made friends with the
With Sloth.
monster human mutant thing.
I think he's supposed to be just kind of like a poor inbred guy.
That's the
was
vibe
my
I was
thought.
getting, but I was like, this is weird.
Yeah, I mean, you could get away with that back then.
Yeah.
But he's also just all heart. Like, you think he's this terrible monster, and he's just...
I remember I'd seen pictures of that character before. I thought it was a guy that lived in a cave that the kids were exploring. I didn't
no, he's
realize
just locked in the
that he had
basement.
a horrible, tragic backstory, and he was
Being
the son of
abused. Yeah.
evil bank robbers or counterfeiters, whatever they were.
They were like bank robbers and criminals. I love the beginning of the Goonies though. Like with the opening shots, a guy who like fake hung himself in your cell, and you're like,
When that happened, I was like,
"Are you watching the right movie?"
I was like, this is a kids movie. Like even in the 80s, there's somebody's hanging themselves. Oh, I guess not. He's not hanging himself.
and then
That's
you
how
get
they
like,
got away with it.
I mean, it sets it up pretty good of like what kind of characters we're dealing with for the bad guys. Like they're not stupid, you know they are stupid, but they're conniving.
Mm-hmm.
It also kind of like the cops really aren't the best because what the hell. But you know, it's a good setup, and I always just love how as they're racing through town away from the cops, it introduces all our characters.
Yeah.
Like they all see the car chase,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just such a great way to like establish each one and who they are.
Yeah.
You know, it's just Steven Spielberg, man.
Maybe if I rewatch it, I will appreciate more of those details because I've only seen it the once when I watched it in preparation for this. So.
Yeah, you know, unlike me, like I said, we watched it all the time as a kid, and if I turn the TV on, Goonies is on, I'm like, I'm gonna keep that channel on because it's Goonies. Like, I love the Goonies. It's got all the, you know, the 80s music and all like the whimsical score behind all of it. It's just such a, I don't know, it's a kid's show.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like in the vein of E.T., which I actually have never watched.
You haven't?
No.
That one I watched a lot as a kid.
The alien freaked me out as a kid, and I just wasn't going to go there. Even as an adult, I'm like, nope, don't like it. But it's in that same vein of like Flight of the Navigator, Goonies, E.T., you know, all these movies came out in the 80s, and they're all kids movies, but they're not too kiddie. It's back when kids movies could be a little bit more serious.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit more adult.
Maybe we should do E.T. next time.
I don't want to watch
and
E.T.
flip the script, have it be one that you never saw and I did.
I don't watch E.T. He creeps me out. He's scary. I don't like it. I'll watch Aliens, but I won't watch E.T.
That's hilarious. You don't want to watch the adorable but kind of awkward
No, I'll watch John
alien.
Carpenter's The Thing before I'll watch E.T. No, not my thing.
Oh, that's hilarious. Everyone's got their thing, I guess.
Yeah, everybody's got their weird little, not triggers, but things that they don't like.
I haven't seen E.T. in ages, but I know the kids in that were amazing actors.
Well, yeah, it was Drew Barrymore, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember
that.
the other kid's name.
I could come up with it if I thought long enough, because a lot of these actors...
I think he retired. Like, he didn't do many roles into adulthood.
Well, he probably got paid enough money, he didn't have to.
But both of them were amazing.
Mm-hmm.
The kids in this were great, too. Like, all of them, in their own ways.
I love, because it's, like, probably one of the most known scenes in the movie when Chunk does the truffle shuffle. I guess... He made the sounds up on the spot. Like, it wasn't in the direction or in the script for him to make all the weird noises when he's shaking his gut to, like, get them to let him in. And, like, when he's telling the story to the bad guys, you know, about how he, like, dropped the puke over the side of the stage, some of that was written in because it was, like, something Steven Spielberg, I guess, had done. But a lot of it, he just winged it on the freaking spot. And I'm like, this kid... I could see why they're all laughing because, like, how much of this was, like, just made up and you can't, and they're just like, what the hell? What is happening?
His delivery on that was great, and I loved watching the bad guys react to this.
Yeah, because they're just like, I love, the one guy's like, I love this kid because what the hell? You know, and he's just so annoying, but you just can't help but just be like, okay, like, that's totally something kids would do. You know, the story he's telling, you're like, all right.
I loved his, like, the way he talked about it. Like, he thought it was going to be this great thing, and now he's so remorseful. But his delivery was just,
and
like,
he starts crying.
So good.
Uh-huh. It's just, There's, a lot of the delivery in the show goes over really well. There's a few parts, like, with Andy and, like, her boyfriend or the jock who wants to get with her and stuff like that. But that's kind of just staple for, like, 80s shows. I mean, that's when you had, like, The Outsiders and, like, all those teenage shows. And I think it was just something, you know, it helps build her character and, like, the people around them and tries to show how different the Goonies are from the preppy kids.
Yeah.
So, and that, you know, Andy and her friend might be those preppy kids too, but they're mostly Goonies.
I liked her friend more than her until the end when she's starting to have a thing with mouth, and I was like, what do you see in him? Get away from him.
Yeah. Somebody made a comment about, you know, oh, it's creepy because of their ages. I'm like, well, when they filmed this, the boys were like 13 to 14. I think the girls were 16. They just
wasn't that big of an age gap.
They just look older because of the makeup and hairstyle and the clothes. But that was just that age.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, that doesn't bug me. Like, they're all kids.
If it was like 18 and 14 or 15, then maybe, but like, they're mid to young teenagers.
Yeah, they're
so
all, you
it's
know,
not a huge gap.
No, and even like when they have like the kiss in the cave when she doesn't know it's not Bran because, I mean, she's not the
At
smartest.
that point, I was like, okay, is she just an idiot?
Yeah, I think she's kind of an airhead. But even then, you're just like, you know, oh well, it's a mistake, and he's like, hey, okay.
It was a very strange scene.
It's another thing that if they remade that these days,
That would not happen.
they wouldn't do it
No.
because people wouldn't be able to distinguish just childhood innocence and them being stupid.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when she does start to mouth off back to mouth, I'm like, oh, honey, no, not him. He's always combing his hair, which is a very, like I said, kind of a greaser thing to do, but his hair really wasn't that long, but...
Yeah, that character, what was her name?
I don't remember her name. I think...
Steph.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actress, Martha Plimpton, I had never seen her as a kid. I've only seen her, like, she was the mom in the show Raising Hope. I really liked that show. She was also in another one that I don't think I ever finished. I think it was called The Real O'Neills. It was 2 sitcoms, basically. But Raising Hope was great. I loved that
I've
show.
heard of that, but yeah, I never watched it.
So I've seen her as an adult, so it was strange seeing her as a kid. Because I think she's one of those people that I have never given a second thought to, like, what was this person like as a kid?
Oh, yeah. It's like they just started acting when they were an adult, you
yeah,
know?
in my head, she's just an adult, so it was strange seeing her as a kid. But she was good.
Well, it's like watching it and being like, that's Thanos!
Yeah, that too. I had never given a thought to Thanos as a teenage boy.
That's Samwise Gamgee.
He I was prepared for,
Right.
so that didn't surprise me or anything. But yeah, no, Martha Plimpton and Josh Brolin, both. Josh Brolin more though, because like I'm so used to him as Thanos.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen him.
Well, we're just so
other
used to
things,
him
but,
being
like,
an adult.
Yeah, I had no idea that he was in this movie until
Right.
I started this.
I know, if you watch like Deadpool 2 with him being Cable, and then you watch this and you're like, wow. It's like you've grown up a lot, but yet somehow you still pretty much look the same. I will say Goonies did jumpstart, I think, a lot of people's love for velvet pouches full of jewels. I know as a kid that was like the thing, like everywhere you went, if they had sold like little velvet pouches, you're like, I want to get that and put like little precious stones in it. Because it was just such a thing where, you know, I think it's that little crow part of your brain that like wants to collect shiny things. Maybe that's what jump started it in my head. But I just remember being as a kid like them pouring all the precious stones and jewels out, which are very obviously even as a kid. I'm like, I don't think those are actually how things like that really look.
Probably not.
Especially if they're from a pirate
treasure.
treasure. I don't think they'd be quite so refined.
Yeah, they were like all perfectly carved.
But still, like as a kid, you know, that little part of your brain's like, oh, I want that. It's like, I want to go to a treasure ship where they have all these jewels and gold and all this stuff. And I like that they actually built the whole damn ship.
That ship was a good looking ship.
It was a good ship. Like, and they built the whole stage because they wanted the kids and stuff to have like genuine reactions when they filmed there. And I was like, that is so cool. I miss that about so many movies now. Like, they built the whole thing. And
yeah.
I know they said behind the scenes they originally wanted One-Eyed Willie to be very similar to Sean Astin's character. I can't remember his name now. Mikey. They wanted to like have him find like a inhaler, like a ancient one that like a pirate may have made themselves. I'm kind of glad they cut that.
Inhaler?
Because,
An ancient inhaler?
Yeah, like something that he would have made himself because he had made all these booby traps, and they kind of wanted to make it that he was very similar, that he was like a jokester and all this stuff, which with all the traps and everything you kind of get because you get more than one shot. Like if he was just out to kill you, he wouldn't let you have you know, like with the piano, you know, like the parts of the floor fall instead of just the whole thing killing everybody. But I'm kind of glad they cut that. And then like there's the octopus scene that they cut too, which I'm kind of glad that they cut that too because it didn't need it. We didn't need...
They mentioned an octopus at the end, but there was no octopus.
No, I know they filmed it because you can see it behind the scenes, but they cut it because I'm like, well, we don't need that sudden burst of action. Like by this time you're invested. Like they found the pirate ship, the bad guys are right behind them. You're into it at this point. We don't need anything else to reel us in.
Yeah.
So
when they say they want an ancient inhaler, is there like a thing that would have been a similar, or do they just mean like an actual inhaler? Because
no, I think they wanted to like come up with something he could have made on his own, but I don't know how you would have done that back in the day. So I think that's kind of why they scrapped that plan.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see them trying to like tie him and Mikey together, like just to have like that connection, but we don't need it.
No.
We don't need that. He's a pirate. We found his treasure. That's all we need.
I think there might be some of that left in the movie though, because of the way he like is talking to the skeleton.
Yeah, it is like the way they're talking.
Yeah.
Because it's a very kind of tender moment when he's talking to him.
Which kind of felt weird in just watching it, but knowing that was the original intent, that makes a bit more sense.
Well, and I imagine by that point they've been following all his directions. So yeah, he probably does kind of feel like, well, I beat you and I made it. So
no,
but you wouldn't have made it on your own, Mikey.
Were you familiar with any of the people who played the bad guys?
No.
They all looked like vaguely familiar, but the only one that I could find that I think I remember was the guy who played Francis, Joe Pantoliano. Pantoliano. He was in Baby's Day Out, which I remember watching a lot as a kid. I don't remember much of it now, but I think he must have been one of the bad guys.
Yeah, I know.
So that might have been why he felt familiar to me.
I know the one Give me a second. This is why I should do notes and I didn't.
And then Anne Ramsey, who played Mama Fratelli, she had a bit part in Scrooged, the Bill Murray movie.
Oh, I think
I remember
seen
her
that once. Yeah.
But I've only seen Scrooge once when I did a podcast on it, so I don't feel like that would be why she seemed familiar.
Oh, yeah, because the one guy, Robert Davi, he played the brother who pretended to hang himself at the beginning.
Yeah.
He was in License to Kill. He was in Die Hard. So I had recognized him because he was in some other movies that I had seen, specifically License to Kill.
When I started making my notes before the movie, I was looking up everybody, and I read that he was a classically trained singer. I was like, that explains
odd.
Why
he could
But then he started singing in the movie.
Yeah,
I was like,
opera.
Okay.
And you're like, oh, okay, I gotcha.
I did like that about his character, though. It made him different than a lot of mobster-type characters.
Well, and it kind of showed, too, just kind of how theatrical he was. Mm-hmm. You know, like, you kind of get that when he breaks out at the beginning, because, you know, who comes up with something like that? You know, and he's just a very... Just, you know, and I suppose some of that probably has to do with the fact that they still live with their mom, assuming that is their real mom, and it's not just like a gangster thing. Like, where it's like, that's mama, she runs the gang. But, you know, he's got to compete for attention. You know? That usually in that kind of situation, that's probably what it was. So it's like, well, if I'm loud and I sing and I'm very theatrical, I'll get more attention than my brothers.
Their dynamic kind of reminded me of the group of bad guys in DuckTales, the Beagle Boys. Because that's like a group of brothers with a mother. So I'm kind of wondering now, like, did DuckTales take inspiration from this, or is this like a trope that goes back even further?
I think it's probably a trope, but they could have been inspired. But I know just from listening to true crime podcasts, there are quite a few like old school like gangs and stuff where like, you know, mom was in charge and her kids were her enforcers or whatever. So, and this is the 80s. I'm sure they took a lot of inspiration from real life time, and who knows how many other movies have this going on in it. We could probably find tons of them.
Yeah. One random bit of trivia that I thought was worth mentioning, it wouldn't have been something that I would have ever known on my own, but the guy who played Troy, the bully who's like the son of the guy who's like trying to take over the town or whatever, he was the titular Jesse in the music video for Jesse's Girl.
Oh, really?
Like, he's not the singer. He was like, he like played
the heartthrob
Jesse in the background of that.
That's funny. They're like, hey, you want to be hot and get paid for it?
And then the guy who played their father, Mikey and Brian's father, he was more known for being a screenwriter. He wrote for MASH, but he was also the writer of the movie Free Willy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Which is another movie I watched a ton as a kid.
We watched Free Willy a lot as a kid, too. My brother liked it more than I did, but we watched that a lot, too.
Yeah, I watched that a lot. I think that's the reason that I knew who Michael Jackson was, because there was like a Michael Jackson music video on the VHS tape that the library had.
Yeah, because I think he had a song in it or something.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen any of the how many sequels that they made to Free Willy. I've only seen the original.
I think I watched like one and I was like, wow, this crap. You know, as they are. Back then everything was straight to DVD or VHS.
Now it's straight to streaming.
Yeah, and it's still crap.
For the most part.
Uh-huh.
Another thing that I didn't know, because I've heard in recent years talks of a sequel to this.
Yeah.
Apparently they've been trying to do a sequel almost since the beginning.
I figured they probably... this is one of those movies where you're kind of like, I'm surprised they never...
It feels like it could have been a franchise.
It just kind of depends which way you took it.
Yeah. Like... I feel like it is both a place where a franchise could grow out of, but it is also a good one-off movie.
It's a very good one-off, yeah.
It's kind of like I grew up reading the Boxcar Children. Like, at some point, like, it's a great series for kids, but at some point you start to question, like, how do these kids keep having all of these things happen to them?
Every childhood book we ever read, like Babysitter's Club, Boxcar Children. There's a couple others that have they've got like 100 books to the series, and
they're still writing Boxcar.
Oh yeah, and at some point you're like, wait a minute. Is this like The Simpsons, where it's just going to go on and on and on till the world ends? Like, I think we could end it by now.
Well, I didn't realize when I was first reading the Boxcar Children. This is an irrelevant but semi-relevant tangent. The original author, Gertrude Chandler Warner, she wrote 19 books. And she ended when I think Henry was going to college, if I remember right.
I didn't read the books well enough to remember anybody.
Well, I loved the books. I read them all. I didn't read them in order. I just borrowed whatever I had.
Oh,
and
right,
at some
right,
point I
right.
realized, why are their ages not consistent? And then I started paying attention to the
there's
ages.
a number on there. It's a series.
It didn't matter
No.
for the most part.
Most of
But
the time it don't.
Until I started paying attention. The first 19 books, they age chronologically. They get older.
Oh,
Each one is a
yeah.
different year or later in a year. Mm-hmm. And then at book 20, that's when she had quit. I don't remember if she had died or she just ended the series. But then they picked up in the 90s, I think, and started writing new ones.
And time was irrelevant.
They rewound the clock.
Oh.
And then they didn't age.
Like The Simpsons.
Kind of.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So the first 19, I think, are canonical to, it's the original author. She wrote the first 19.
Right.
And then after that, it's like...
Just a free-for-all.
Yeah, it's whatever. There's no canon anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, they could have easily done something like that with Goonies. Like, if you wanted to spin off each character and, go on with their lives or have them... Because you can't do the same story again.
No.
They're not going to get chased by robbers again. They're not going to find another ship again. You could always have them age up and maybe go and try to find the ship to get the rest of the treasure off it. Or you could focus on, maybe this experience made one of them Indiana Jones. Though it's a few years too late from India since that was Nazis. But...
I mean, it doesn't have to be Indiana Jones.
Right,
but
an archaeologist or something. But, yeah, you just have to... And I think that's probably half the reason why we didn't get one is, what's the story?
Yeah.
Because it's we don't want to do a cash grab. We need a good story. And what would that story be? Be Bran turning into Thanos.
I wonder, if they are actually this time making a sequel, I wonder what it's going to be.
I don't believe anything I read online.
I mean, it's the actors are, in interviews say that, it's in talks, but, they've almost been saying that since the beginning, so...
I mean, I think a lot of the resurgence with, the love of the 80s with Stranger Things, with Sean Ashton was in for a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think that may have kind of, and Ki-Hai Kwan kind of coming back.
Yeah.
And, which he should have never gone away to begin with. He was so wronged. He should have always been as popular and loved as he is right now. But I think a lot of that is kind of talked hey, let's do more Goonies. Mm-hmm. But who knows what they'll do. I mean, at this point, you'd almost have to focus it on their kids, and it never really ends too well.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how they handle it, whether the parents are involved or not. But, if you're making it for the people who love the original, they're not going to want a story that follows the kids, right. And the original characters are just in the background.
Right. You're going to want it to focus on them. Mm-hmm. But what's that story going to be? What? One-Eyed Willie's ghost comes back? What? To get his treasure, Pirates of the Caribbean? And he had to return all the jewels? I don't know what the story could be unless you go dramatically different and just kind of do something. Maybe there's a sinkhole and they find something else. And just don't connect it.
If they're in the same town... I can't believe that more sinkholes haven't opened up with how hollow the earth under their town
Well, and
is.
I think they filmed it in Oregon, isn't it? Yeah, it's on the Oregon coast or whatever. So you could have a tsunami or something, wash something on shore, or a sink. Yeah, because it's very much a lot of a lot of running water and stuff beneath the ground. Yeah, I'm surprised there aren't more sinkholes with that.
The whole scene where they were shaking the pipes and then things were flying apart in town, I was like, what on earth?
That is one of those, this is a kid's movie and we're just going to let it fly. Because even as a kid, I'm I don't know if plumbing works like that, but...
Yeah, because they weren't even right underneath all the things that were breaking.
Right. I know. You got all these old men in the golf course country club or whatever just trying to shower. I'm
And the way their shower handles exploded into the wall.
Yeah, I'm just that's not... What? Then you're it's fine. It's funny. It's fine. It's just fine.
That's at that point I was yeah, I could see myself liking this as a kid.
Yeah.
but I didn't see it when I was a kid. So I guess in that scene I wasn't nitpicking, definitely, because I was like, this makes no sense.
Well, it's like the wishing well scene. That's the one that always got me, because they're throwing the coins down and it's in that giant cavern, like cave system. And I'm like, okay, you can't tell me in the history of this town that not one kid has shimmied down that to
didn't think of that, but that is an excellent point.
To go get all the quarters that people are tossing in there. You cannot, and there's a bucket that they try to haul Andy up on. And of course, she just sends her coat. But I'm like, no. There is no way in hell. Nobody has ever shimmied down here to get all the coins. Yeah. It's absolutely not happening. That was one of the few parts where I was like, no, man. Not unless we have a baby Jessica situation where, somebody fell down the well and they never got them out. But I'm like, somebody's going down that well. You're going to have a group of little who get ropes, and they might drop their friend and have to call the fire department. Somebody's going down that well to get that money.
Yeah, I didn't think of it when I was watching it, but if that had been a thing near where we grew up, my brothers would have 100% tried something like that.
Absolutely.
I would have been standing at the top being like, I'm going to go tell mom. But I wouldn't have done it myself, but my brothers definitely would have.
Oh, it's another thing. It's like the crow brain in there, wanting shiny things. You're a little kid, you see a hole, you're like, can we go down that?
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to fish quarters out of like the mall fountains. So
right, exactly.
It's like that times 100.
Yes. And it's just like, well, it's a wishing well. How deep can it be? Well,
apparently deep enough to connect to a massive underground cave system.
Yeah. So that's why that was the one thing where I'm like, nobody's gone down this well. Are you sure? This isn't like finding like a water well, like out in a field, like which you're not going to go down because that's where you get your water from. This is a wishing well. You see people toss their money in it and probably other things.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, as a kid, I was just like, nah, somebody's going down. Somebody's going down.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't fully understand the whole thing with their town being taken over. Like, was it the entire town being bulldozed? I
think it was just their area.
Okay.
I think they lived like in like the poor area, and they wanted.
It was like called the Goondocks, but I don't think that was the town's name.
No. I think that's just what they called their area because they were Goonies, and it was the Goondocks or whatever. I think it was, and again, I think this is a purely '80s thing where a big corporation could come in and buy out all the housing lots.
Okay.
And bulldoze it and make a mall or make a golf course. I know they still do that because every now and then you'll see like a picture of a house in the middle of like a big industrial area because they refuse to sell out. Yeah, out of spite. And I think that was this situation where they were pressuring the people into selling out and moving out so that they could bulldoze the whole area.
I kind of love spite houses. Just for the aesthetic. I just love the look of like one little house in the middle of a massive concrete jungle. Plus,
the longer you hold out, the more your property's worth. So you just wait long enough, you get more money, and then you can just, be like, all right, I got, and then you sell it to their competitor. That's what I would do to be extra spiteful. But I think that was the case, was just they were buying up the land. Because they didn't say they were rentals. It sounded like they all owned their homes. So it's not like the landlord was kicking anybody out, because at the end, Mikey's dad is supposed to sign the paperwork to like hand over the property or sell the property for undervalued, like they weren't going to pay them what it was actually worth. I don't know. Even as a kid, I was like, I don't quite get it because they're not forcing them, but I don't know how that kind of business works.
I would need to watch it again to like fully figure it out, if it's possible to fully figure it out.
And then Google like, how does this work?
It seemed like they weren't like the owners, like they maybe had a mortgage and they were being foreclosed or something because they couldn't make the payments.
But that wouldn't be everybody.
Everybody. That's why I wasn't fully understanding the situation. Yeah,
I think that's another one of those things of like they're going to say just enough for kids to be like, oh.
Yeah.
And then the parents are going to be like, huh?
Yeah. That's kind of the way that I was feeling. Like I was like, is it even supposed to make sense, or is this purely just to get the message across to the kids? Like the parents need money and the kids need help. Getting them some money.
Yeah, it'd be something I'd have to go back and actually like listen to when the parents are talking, and maybe even like look up behind the scenes, like the script and stuff that would have the extra information of what is going on. But I mean, like I said, as a kid watching, you just went with it. You're like, oh, they're going to lose their house. They need money.
I will say, though, that in the scene that we already talked about with them, like, shaking the pipes and, like, things start falling apart, I was like, okay, if the town's infrastructure is this bad, maybe it deserves to be turned into a golf course.
I think they said it wasn't a very big town, bigger than, like, where we live. But, yeah, I don't know. I think, again, it might just be one of those 80s storylines.
Yeah, probably.
Because if it was, like, a trailer court and, like, had somebody who owned the land and was selling out, that'd be a whole different story.
Yeah. I think the part that made me know that I would have liked this so much more as a kid is the part where they're, like, going through the cave and they're, like, finding all of the puzzles and things. Like, that would have been exactly my jam as a kid. I would have loved that.
Because this came out around the same times as, like, Indiana Jones was getting popular. And, like, kids can watch Indiana Jones, but it is more adult, you know, focus. So, like, then Goonies comes out, which has a kind of the similar thing, like the puzzles and the caves and the treasure. But this is for kids.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was totally like, you're like, I want to find, like, a puzzle box, and I want to go on an adventure.
Yeah.
And almost die playing a bone piano.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and it's another one of those things where you're like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, but we're going to go with it. But I do give the movie credit, though, for not really shying away from stuff. Like, they show the skeletons. And they show, like, the, you know, where people had died, and they talk about it. You know, they don't, you know, not show things. And just, because, like, I feel like nowadays some movies, they would just have them find, like, the wallet. Or, like, an arm or something.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, this was back when they could do things just a little bit kind of scary, but not scary, you know?
Yeah.
Like I said, more Indiana Jones aimed for kids.
Yeah, for most of this, I wouldn't say, like, maybe some kids would find it scary. Even me, who did not like scary things, I don't think this would have scared me.
No. It's just a little bit more, you know, it's for kids.
Yeah.
Just compared to some of the kids' movies they make these days, it's like, they wouldn't have done a lot of this stuff, I don't think.
Yeah.
And a lot of that cave system, it would have all been CGI, and you'd been like, dude, this is not nearly as fun.
No.
No. I want to see all the boulders and rocks and how they had to make everything. Like,
I think that's the thing that I appreciated most about the movie was how practical it was. Because you just don't get much of that these days.
No, there's a few scenes, like, with backgrounds where you can tell they're doing, you know, they didn't have CGI, but they had, like, the fake...
A matte painting?
Yeah, not necessarily...
I don't mind matte paintings.
No, it wasn't a matte painting. They did, like, a projection or something where you could tell, like, they added people in later or whatever, and it's a little off, but then it's just as soon as you notice it, it's done. So you just are like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's fun.
Yeah.
No, matte paintings are fine because that's a lot of Star Wars.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I don't count matte paintings or things in the background the same way that I do CGI. Because to me, there's more artistry in that than... I mean, not that CGI can't be artistic, but, like, I love paintings.
Right.
The fact
well, it's real.
The fact they can make it look real and it's a painting.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, and it's actually is real. Like, they just, you know, superimposed or filmed a certain way against it, but it's something that's actually there. You can touch it.
Yeah.
I will say, like, the most unbelievable part of the Goonies for me is that they never went in the attic before that day. Like that. They never went up and saw all the that his dad, who worked at the museum, had stockpiled in his attic. All the pirate stuff and all the fun stuff. I'm like, really? You've got these nosy friends? Not one of them tried to get up in the attic?
Yeah, that is a good point.
I mean, unless his mom was always there to stop them. Or maybe Bran was there more often to, like, keep them out of it. But when they go up in the attic, they're like, oh, wow, you had all this stuff up here? I'm like, wait a minute. Really? Like, yeah, we never went up in our attic.
I didn't think of that, but probably because I was too busy thinking about why did the dad bring home all this stuff from the museum in the first place?
He's stealing. It's an 80s thing. Maybe the museum didn't have storage for it. Maybe it was stuff they were going to throw out, and he's like, well, I'll just hang on to it. You know, it's the 80s. You can get away with stuff like that.
Yeah, who knows? Did they ever say at the end if they were going to go after the ship?
No.
Because, like, the Rosita,
yeah,
she found a bag that they had brought with them full of jewels that they didn't realize they still had. And I guess that was enough to pay off the house, but, like, the ship is right there.
Yeah, I would assume that the Coast Guard would go after the ship. I mean, that ship had a lot of holes in it. I mean, it was leaking water. It probably should have sank a long time ago. So who knows? And the Oregon coast is very rocky. Like, we saw all the rocks. Like, it's going to drift into something.
Yeah.
I would assume the Coast Guard would have gone after it, especially knowing that there's treasure on it.
Yeah, definitely.
But, I mean, the kids aren't going to do it unless that would have been the sequel. Let's all get in the boat and row together. Row, Sloth, row. But, I mean, that would be my guess, that the cops called it in and the Coast Guard would have gone after it.
Sloth was another thing that I had questions about at the end, because, like, Chunk just invites him to row with
I
him.
know.
Like,
I'm just like, oh, we're not going to check with our parents, huh?
Yeah, you didn't run this by your mom.
I got this giant creepy guy here. I know he looks weird and his ears twitch and he's not quite right, but he's coming home with us. Like, okay, honey. Okay. But, I mean, from what we see of Chunk's parents, they seem very happy-go-lucky like him, so maybe they would have been all for it.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe they're like, yeah, sure, why not? More the merrier.
And it's one of those things where it's an 80s kids movie.
Yep. It's an
Don't
80s
question
movie.
it.
No.
He gets to be the new brother,
Yep,
whatever.
you just go with it. You're like, we don't know how old this man is. We know nothing about him, but okay, sure.
I do wonder, though, how he turned out so well-adjusted, being chained up in the basement and tortured for decades.
I think he watched a lot of just fun TV shows, because he was watching, like, action, like adventure shows, so maybe he watched a lot of cartoons and a lot of kids shows and was just like, well, that's how other people are. They're not like my siblings. But then we all know somebody who grew up in a terrible household and they're still a wonderful person, so... maybe that's the whole point, is like deep down, he's just a good, a big-hearted guy.
Yeah.
Who just happens to be just a little bit different.
Yeah, just a little bit different.
I know the guy who played him was, I think, an NFL football player, because they needed a big guy.
Yeah.
And he, like, went under, like, 5 hours of prosthetics, and, his ears and his one eye was, like, controlled.
I was kind of wondering how that worked, because I was like, I think the one eye is real.
Yep, the one eye was, and the other one wasn't. That would have been such a bitch.
That would have been terrible.
You would have been, because you're only seeing out of one eye, and you probably can't hear very well because of all the prosthetics around your head. They probably just had, like, motion, like, this way, sir. And I know I think at the beginning of the show, he's wearing, like, an NFL t-shirt, and I think they said, it was the Florida, was it the Buccaneers, maybe? I don't know. They said he's wearing the t-shirt of the NFL team that guy played for.
Okay.
Which, I'm like, well, that's a fun little Easter egg, especially once they got a big NFL guy to play him. Like, why wouldn't you put him in one of his team's shirts? Like, that's fun.
Yeah.
Just a fun little Easter egg.
I just also made another connection. I forgot. At the end, he tears off the one shirt. He's got a Superman shirt underneath. Richard Donner.
Uh-huh.
I did not make the connection the first time I watched this.
Yep, for Superman. Well, and I think they even play the Superman theme at one point, too. Isn't it when he's, like, swinging in to save them? Okay. The Superman theme starts.
Yeah.
And maybe he watched Superman. And that's why he was such a good guy. He wanted to be Superman.
Yeah. I mean, he had to have known who Superman was because he was wearing the shirt.
Yeah.
Although the shirt could have been a hand-me-down from somewhere else. So who knows?
I think he says Superman or something at one point, or he tries. So, but yeah, if you were watching a lot of Superman and that's who you wanted to be, then yeah, you would be a kind of guy like that. And also probably a nice plug for Richard Donner.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably all I've got for notes for the movie.
Yeah, I can't really think of too much else either. I mean, I know there's a lot of it that we didn't cover, but it's not really a movie you have to go scene by scene with.
It's not one that you can, I mean, you could analyze it if you wanted. But
why would you?
Yeah, it's more about the experience of watching it as a kid's adventure than it is, like, trying to pick apart meanings or intentions for scenes. It's basically just a long series of fun scenes that kids would like watching. Yeah,
it's just a series of, not really unfortunate events, but just a treasure hunting, just fun movie.
Yeah.
With just a lot of silly scenes and a lot of just weird what the hell moments and a bunch of kids who actually are acting like kids.
Yeah, I think that is one of the best things about it, is the kids actually did feel real. Even the ones I did not like Mouth.
Which
he felt like a real kid, so you have to give him props for that.
Yep, because like I said, we all knew that kid, and we probably didn't like him either.
Yeah.
But he stuck around anyway, because this is just like, I think they said the town they're in is supposed to be like 10,000 people, so that's slightly bigger than like the Harlan area, but we would, if you're in an area like that, everybody, and you're all going to hang out together whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's how you end up with a kid like Mouth hanging around.
I wonder if they do make a sequel, if he'll be around and if he'll be better or worse.
Probably worse. You don't usually grow out of that just too much, I don't think.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I think that will be all for this episode. We will be back in the future for more. We have other 80s and 90s movies that we're planning on talking about later on, so we will see you next time for something else.
Yep, see you later.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.